You got me looking at the inside of a ping pong ball. Oh man, well the days really are getting long, aren't they?
It looks like Pac-Man. That's cute.
It looks like a peppermint?
Pac-Man. You squeeze. Look.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm here to report there's nothing that is.
No, put it on your
nose. No, I knew you were going to say that. That's really sharp.
You want to show up likable and
Stop
willing
Stop
and try new
Stop
things.
it.
Like
Stop it. Stop
pioneers
it.
too.
I was just trying to find something.
Are you ordering your books again?
Yeah, I'm just ordering them up. So we are here to talk about Pioneer.
Pioneer.
Whenever I think of pioneers, I think of that line in Shakespeare in Love. I was actually trying to find it, is what I was doing. That's what I was doing. The line from, I think it's Geoffrey Rush's character, who says, it's all going to be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end yet. Which actually turns out to be not from Shakespeare in Love. It's variously attributed to John Lennon. And I've just learned it's actually from a Portuguese, so you would like them. Michelle is Portuguese. Portuguese poet. So yes, that's what Pioneer thinks, is that if things aren't right now, they will be soon. There is an overall optimism about the world for a pioneer. And it's funny, when you read, you probably read Built to Last and Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in Good to Great, Jim talks about the fact that the leaders that he's interviewed over the years, the best leaders, are really humble. And for the evidence of this humility, he says that when you ask really good leaders like why they were so successful, so many of them say, I don't know, I was just lucky. And Jim at the time took that as an example of humility. But actually, when you look at really effective entrepreneurs and leaders, they actually do think they're lucky. They think that the world is basically a friendly place. That's the feeling you get with a pioneer, is the world is basically a friendly place. And I don't know what's around the corner, but it's probably the land of milk and honey. It's probably going to be fantastic, probably. And by the way, the only way to know if it is the land of milk and honey is to walk around the corner and see. So, for many of us, we have anxiety. Why am I holding this ping pong ball? We have anxiety about, okay, I put it back over there. With anxiety about ambiguity. For many of us during these sorts of times, right now where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of us legitimately we wake up on some days and we feel sort of anxious. Some of us might even sort of feel a bit depressed about the amount of uncertainty in the world today. Pioneers really don't. Pioneers tend to think that ambiguity isn't all the danger that it's cracked up to be, that in the spaces inside the ping pong ball is good stuff. And the world is basically a good place, and I'm actually pretty lucky. It's an overall kind of orientation. I remember my first interview with Don Clifton. I was doing a research report on the social and psychological issues of entrepreneurship. And we were interviewing a couple of really great entrepreneurs, and we were talking about how do you start? When you start a new project, how do you start? And in this interview that we were doing, one of these chaps said, it's really easy. I've just realized that I'm the sort of person that if I want to go across town, I'm not going to wait until the stoplights are green. I'm going to go across town, stoplight to stoplight. And that's a pioneer. I'm going to go across town, stoplight. I know I want to go across town, but I'm not going to wait until all the green lights line up. I'm going to go intersection to intersection to intersection to intersection. And what that feels like for us, it feels, on the receiving end of it, it feels light, right? Amy's on our team. Amy's a pioneer. When you call up Amy and you go, like, what's going to happen this week? There's no heaviness about, well, what happened last week? We still really haven't post-mortemed. What? There's none of that. It's like, move. Laura on our team, same thing, is that your energy, I don't know whether you know this as a pioneer because you're so inside it, you might not even feel this. I suppose that's one of the benefits of doing this, is you can step out of yourself and sort of see yourself the way others see you. But your feeling that you give us is a feeling of lightness. We want to call you
substance, but light.
Yes. Yeah, it's not, you were asking this earlier, are pioneers frivolous? No, but well, I suppose you could be a frivolous pioneer, and you could make us think that you haven't really thought about what you're gonna need if you go around the corner. Even if it is the land of milk and honey, do we have anything to put the milk in? Like, you could, I suppose, come across that way, but pioneers don't necessarily feel frivolous, that they haven't thought something through. Instead, they just feel optimistic that whatever it is that we're gonna need around that corner, we'll probably find. We will make a map out of the bulrushes that we will surely find. We will take the wicker and we'll put the milk in the wicker, the wicker will be there, I'm sure. So there's a feeling of resourcefulness, different sort of resourcefulness than connector, your kind of resourcefulness. The pioneer has the resourcefulness of we'll make do, we'll find something will be there that will work for us. Now, of course, if you're pioneer equalizer, you'll probably also put structure to that. If you're pioneer creator, you'll probably also have really tried to think through some of the concepts that might help you as you go around the corner, some of the ideas. But the pioneer strength itself is an overall orientation that the world will provide. The world will be there for you. And it's uplifting for the rest of us. It's like, who do we want to call? We want to call.
It is.
You want to call the pioneer.
You said Laura. I will invite Laura to meetings that have nothing to do with what her role is, but because I know I'm actually excited to invite her to a meeting.
Yeah.
Because she's going to add something new and great, and she wants to be there. I know she likes new things, but I hadn't processed. Why do I always think of Laura when there's something we're doing and I, want to.
And it's not like Laura's demeanor is different than Amy's demeanor. So you don't necessarily know this from the way in which it's not like all the pioneers are running around with happy, chirpy smiles on their faces. It's not the way at all. It's just over time with pioneers, you realize they don't close anything down. They're always opening it up. They're always opening it up. Now, sometimes if you want to get something closed, Amy's a really good starter. She's a really good builder. And what that sometimes, I suppose, can mean is that after the initial rush of the start has happened, she might get bored and want to move on. And maybe you're that kind of pioneer too, where you're like, it's the starting, it's the beginning, it's all of the ambiguity rolled into one, and you're just like, oh, this is going to be so great.
Do pioneers, I'm sure, of course, sometimes, but do they have trouble completing things, or is that something to watch out for? Is completing?
Well, so my show was just saying, is completion a challenge for pioneers? And there, frankly, I wouldn't want to generalize. If you have equalizer right there, if you have teacher right there, your pioneer teacher is, of course, a fabulous mentor combination. Because as a pioneer teacher, you're not trying to complete the person, right? You want to let the person run. We'll get to teacher in a couple of days, but it's not necessarily so that pioneers struggle with completion. It's more that they are super excited by the possibilities of what we haven't done yet. And for some of you as pioneers, you may want to ensure that the expectations that other people have on the team of you aren't all about sticking with something after you've been into the project for 15, 20 months. Maybe that's not exactly the right place for you. Or maybe the rest of the team should at least know that you're going to be your most yourself, your most jazzed, your most juiced when there's the most ambiguity in front of you. So yeah, it's not necessarily so that completion, it will really depend upon the particular individual.
I love this line in the book. You say pattern interrupts of any kind, new ideas, goals, projects, people, all of these grab your attention. Can they keep your attention? Well, that's another matter. So it seems like if you're really juiced about something new it would be easy. I guess a question would be, if I were managing a pioneer or in relationship with pioneer, how do you keep their attention if not that it's less about completion, but they could potentially get distracted by the next new thing and then the next new thing?
The next shiny new object.
Yeah.
Yes, so always with things like that, how do you keep someone's attention is always a function of what sort of ongoing mission or ongoing contribution you're trying to make. A pioneer could stay on the same mission. Amy, again, on our team, has been for 25 years fascinated by what does it feel like to truly engage employees at work. She'll be on that mission for the next 30 years too. But in the context of that, she's always making up new ways to do that. Her attention does move from what is already known into what is unknown. And that's what's light about her. That's what's powerful about her. And all of us who are a little bit, as many humans are, a little bit cautious, a little bit deliberative, all of us love to hook on to that kind of what-ifness. What-ifness. I mean, the real challenge, frankly, for you as pioneers is going to be, can you ever slow down enough to let the rest of us catch up? Or can you vividly enough describe what's around the corner to ensure that our anxiety is muted in some way? We are not going to be as happy as you are trundling around the corner. The way you can help us is vividly as possible paint a picture of what around the corner looks like. And then we'll probably feel a little more comfortable grabbing onto your coattails.
Well, I was thinking I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about trust and pioneers, just generally, because sometimes it might feel like, hey, everything's great. How, even as a leader, or you're trying to move or create momentum around a project, anything, trust, especially if you've got an advisor, that's going, hey, show me the plan, show me the expert, show me the...
Yeah. Well, I think for any pioneer, trust is always a function less of the pioneeriness of the pioneer than of who the other people are. So as with every single strength role, if you want to build trust with another person, you've got to figure out where their sources of trust and credibility start. If you're dealing with an advisor, it would start with where are the experts, show me the facts, right? If you were dealing with a creator, you'd stop to ensure that that person knew that we've thought this through, right? That we've made sense of this. So the pioneer, if you are a pioneer, look for your number 2, look for your number 3, so that you can see sort of what kind of pioneer you are. We do trust pioneers though, because the overall feeling is that whatever,
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, whatever mess we're in, if you like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna move forward. It's like, don't worry, the world will provide. That doesn't remove trust. It actually gives us something to lean into look, the beautiful thing about being a pessimist is that you're right way more often than an optimist is. There's an awful lot more ways for things to go wrong than right. But it's weird, that doesn't mean we trust pessimists more, does it? Right. Trust isn't a question of being right, it's a question of whether or not you can help us see a better world and we can move into it. And that's what pioneers do so well for us. They're not naive, they're not idealists. They just basically believe that if we put good thought out into the world about what could go right, things are more likely to go right. And then if they don't, we'll find another way to move forward. I mean, it really is a lovely way to move through the jungle of life. We'll find a path. We'll find a path. And for many of us, sometimes we sit by ourselves going, it is so dark in this jungle, and I don't, what happens if we come around the corner and we don't have our machete? And that's real, because we might have dropped our machete. So you're so stopped, yeah. And that is a state that some of us get into, particularly now. Some of us can get really stopped, and then we can't really get ourselves going again. Such an important thing for pioneers. We talked a couple of days ago about equalizers. Step into your voice right now. Well, pioneers, please turn up your volume right now. We need your motion. You make sense of the world as motion. Movement forward is good. And there are some of us that will really need to drink from that cup.
Is there any way I could ask a few questions?
Yes, go ahead.
Just on that.
Michelle.
Thank you. Yay. You do have here, you are smarter and more perceptive when you are doing something you've never done before. So I am automatically was thinking about handling this crisis. So you just asking them to step up. It's really interesting how people can get, you know, scared and stop, but they're actually smarter in these situations. So, you know, how does, say something about that.
I thought you were going to throw the ball at me. Yeah, it's interesting that with each one of these strengths roles, you're always asking sort of, where is your source of power? And where is your source of trust?
Mm-hmm.
Where is your source of fear?
Mm.
Where is your source of intelligence?
Mm.
All those are kind of interesting questions to consider about each one of these strengths. With Pioneer, it's weird because, and this is true as we go through the 9, one strength source of intelligence might be another strength source of fear.
Mm.
So as an example with me, creator, I like to think things through. I get frightened when I haven't thought things through. I get anxious.
Or if you know someone else hasn't, because you ask a lot of questions.
Yes,
so
and I ask a lot of whys, and I'm like, and I'm doing it because that's a source of fear for me. Well, Amy, I'll use Amy again. Amy doesn't, that's not a source of fear for her, that's a source of intelligence for her. Mm-hmm. Laura's the same. I mean, it's like, when we've never done it before, I'm better. They're both better. They're faster, they're sharper, they're more attractive, they're more appealing, they're more intelligent, they're more creative. They're all of that more when they've never done it before.
Wow.
How, now it's funny, I was watching, I don't know who was I was watching. Ooh, I'll say this. I was watching Brene Brown, and Brene was all about some podcast she was doing about the first time, and then she used an expletive. The first time, like it was how awful it is to do something for the first time. Well, it is for you, Brene. And it's for me. It's not for Amy. It's not for Laura. We generalize about people's experiences. Pioneers are smarter when it's brand new. How does a pioneer learn? I'll tell you how a creator learns. A creator learns, get me to copy someone. Show me the person doing the whole thing so I can get the gestalt of the whole thing, and then I can learn it. Pioneers, you don't. You want to have a pioneer learn? You say, go try it. Go try it. Read the instructions? No. Go try it. You'll learn as you're making it up as you, making it up as you go along is what a pioneer, that's their sort of internal mantra. I'm making it up as I go along, and I'm making me as I go along, and I'm making sense as I go along, and I'm making contribution as I go along. And it's, as I said, like for right now, for many of us, we need to hook on to the pioneers in our lives because it's gonna be all right. It doesn't mean that there aren't wrong things, but as I said, you know, optimists are wrong more than,
yes.
but they will create more goodness.
Well, and if they're willing to, you know, experiment and willing to do new things, and they put themselves out there in that way, and they love it, they probably experience a lot of failure. Can you talk a little bit about risk and failure and pioneers?
Yeah, so risk and failure are, we use those words as though risk means the same thing to everyone. Failure means the same thing to everyone. Like we just throw those words around. If you were to say to a pioneer, what is risk? It's like, it doesn't come right. It's a different word. Risk feels dangerous. They're like, no, we're moving. Moving is breathing. Moving is life. Risk? No, luck. You know, it's like, talk to me about risk. Okay, but pioneers wouldn't have much to say about risk. They'd have a lot to say about luck. They'd have a lot to say about movement. They would have a lot to say about,
That's interesting.
you know, experiment, learning, failure. That's interesting. Like there's a whole, you know, shenanigans about we learn more from failure than we ever did from success. If you ask people to think about the most pivotal time in their life, they'll always go to a dark place, and that's where the learning comes from. That's not true. It's true for some people. But you ask a pioneer where they learn the most, it wasn't when they were marinating in failure. That's not when they learn. They're learning by moving, by trying, by moving, by trying. Iterate, move, iterate, move. That's learning. Is there failure in there? Yes, and it's gone. Yes, and it's gone. Yes, and it's gone.
It doesn't weigh them
down, and it doesn't really interest them. If you're a pioneer, you're not like, ooh, let's sit for a day. let's do what the Army calls an after-action review. If you're a pioneer, you're like, shoot me now. I don't want to do it after. I want to go take another hill. You know what? I'll learn a lot more if I can figure out how to take another hill, and then we'll probably make something up as we're halfway up that hill. Now, to your point, like if you're a pioneer and you're constantly forgetting anything that's happened in the past, well, then you're not a human. But you don't learn by marinating in failure. And all that stuff that we hear about, you learn the most from failure. Pioneers are, I don't really know what you're talking about. And they'll nod happily at you because you're trying to be helpful, I guess. But they're not sticking with that. They're moving forward, they're moving on.
I don't know how you'd answer this, but with any role, but I'm curious with Pioneer and everything that you said, which role of the 9 would most likely have friction with a Pioneer?
Which role would have most friction with the Pioneer? I don't know that I want to take the bait on that question because, like Paul, I know Paul was advisor creator. You can be pioneer creator. There are no two roles that fly in the face of one another. Pioneer creator would seem to create friction, right? If you are a pioneer, the other person's a creator, pioneer's going move, 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 creator's going, wait a minute, I can't really move unless I've fully understood the concepts that explain where we're going.
That's quite a beautiful blend.
Well, I've worked with Amy for, she doesn't frustrate me. I don't frustrate, maybe I do frustrate, maybe I do frustrate her. But it's a wonderful combination. By the way, you could have that combination in you. So it's not as though any one strength necessarily creates friction with any other strength. What creates friction always is misunderstanding the other person. Where the person is just acting and then you're thinking that they're acting because you triggered that action. You didn't, they're just doing their thing. Amy's just doing her thing and moving through life in a way that brings her energy, that brings her strength. And there's the only problem that Amy could have in the world is that people look at Amy, they don't see her. And then her behavior is weird. Because now you don't know why she's making the moves that she's making. But that's always true of every one of these strengths. All of them can weave beautifully together into a tapestry.
A team, a tapestry, a role combination.
A relationship. All of those things can, who should you marry? Well, none of the strengths necessarily.
Don't give it away. You have to come Friday.
I won't give it, okay, so we're gonna talk about this more on Friday. All right, so I think in the live session, Friday live, 12 Pacific. Okay, that is a wrap on Pioneers. See you around the corner, Pioneers.